Before you begin absorbing this wisdom, you must first know who I am. I am Wu Zhao. In your Western history, you have Elizabeth I, you have Cleopatra, but in my eyes, they were merely players within a man's game. I am the only woman in 5,000 years of Chinese history to seize the throne, change the dynasty, and rule as a legitimate emperor. At 14, I entered the Great Tang Palace as a Kairen, a low-ranking concubine. At that time, I was nothing more than a resource, a disposable asset to be replaced at any moment. To the men who called themselves noble, I was Wu Mei, the charming one, a label scented with the odor of a plaything. But I refused to be defined. I endured exile after the old emperor passed. I shaved my head and became a nun in Ganya Temple, enduring despair under the cold temple lamps. In those darkest days, I learned the first rule of power. If you wish to rule the world, you must first seize the power to define it. I was no longer anyone's concubine. I returned to the palace, seized the crown, and eventually ruled from behind the curtain. I created a brand new word for myself, Zhao. Sun and moon above, emptiness below. I was no longer a woman. I was the order of the universe. When I defined myself as a god, any opposition was no longer politics. It was blasphemy. In modern business, this is called cognitive monopoly. Why does Apple take 80% of the smartphone market's profits? Because Steve Jobs redefined what a phone is. He didn't sell functions, he defined quality of life. If you compete within someone else's standards, you earn a margin. If you define the standards, you earn a tax. The lesson: the poor compete on products, the rich compete on definitions. When I saw I sat upon the throne, a wall stood before me, the Guanlong aristocracy. They were the hereditary elite, monopolizing all wealth and upward mobility. If you are a startup founder today, how do you break such a suffocating monopoly? My answer: exploit the undervalued labor. I opened the imperial exams to the commoners and even allowed self-recommendation. Those geniuses born into poverty were trash to the old aristocrats. But to me, they were hungry ambition agents. I gave them a seat at the table and they became the ground force that dismantled the old order. This is the logic of Uber or Airbnb. Before them, the taxi and hotel industries were closed franchises. Uber didn't hire professional drivers, they empowered ordinary people with cars but no way to monetize. This is disruptive innovation. When you empower those ignored by the incumbents, you build an ecosystem your rivals cannot even comprehend. Many ask me, was it too cruel to kill my own daughter just to frame my rival, Empress Wang? It was not cruelty, it was a precise emotional algorithm. Empress Wang represented nobility and reason. That was her moat, but also her grave. The masses do not care about logic, they only care about who looks more in pain. I packaged myself as the victim, utilizing the emperor's pity to launch a dimensional strike on my rival's reputation. Look at modern PR wars. When a startup faces a giant lawsuit, they often frame themselves as David against Goliath. Truth is worthless in the face of emotion. If you want to win a market, learn to tell a heartbreaking story before you show a product list. As a company grows, people get lazy. This is organizational entropy. I appointed cruel officials and wrote the classic of framing, Luo Zhijing, establishing a system of mutual whistleblowing. This wasn't for justice, it was a zero-cost monitoring algorithm. When everyone feels unsafe, they overcompensate. They produce more value just to prove their loyalty and survive. This is Amazon's high-intensity performance review, or Intel's mantra. Only the paranoid survive. Efficiency comes from a measured dose of fear. A leader's job is not to make everyone happy and mediocre, but to keep them anxious and brilliant. 就是 I carved massive Buddhas in the Longmen grottos, using my own face as the model. Historians call it wasteful. I call it mental occupancy. When my subjects knelt before the Buddha, they were kneeling to God and to me. Why do top companies build grand headquarters and hire superstars? To build faith barriers. When a customer buys a status identity instead of a product, you have the deepest moat in the world. After my death, I left a wordless stele. This was my final hedging strategy. I refused to let anyone define my ending with words. I kept the Wu Zetian brand in a state of eternal controversy, and controversy is eternal traffic. 20 minutes have passed. Did you see a cruel woman or an algorithm for harvesting the world? The world has never belonged to the nice. It belongs to those who seize the definition, empower the edge, weaponize emotion, manage pressure. I am Wu Zhao. Go and build your empire. Do not disappoint me. If you don't like and subscribe, it means you are nothing but a fool. Goodbye.